There's plenty of jobs available. We need landscapers, we need field workers, we need people working at the slaughterhouses. We also need truck drivers. Problem is, American citizens don't want to work these jobs. My father worked in the fields until he was drafted in 1943 at the age of 18, saw combat in France and Germany. So if you're unemployed, stop complaining, go pick vegetables like my father did at the age of 10. Ouch, that hurts. But there is a lot of truth in that, and people need to have a dose of reality on both sides, really. Because the thing is, nobody wants to work anymore, and people like this think it's because people are lazy, but on the other side of the coin, the people who actually don't want to work anymore are also feeling less motivated to work due to the current situation and the current state of the economy. So I want to get into this today because there's a lot of people out there like this who make comments like that and say, you know, today's generation doesn't want to work. Now, obviously, there is some truth to this. There is some truth to the fact that people don't want to work. You're seeing the labor participation rate go down, especially for young men, which is a worrying trend that we're seeing in today's economy. You know, according to a recent poll, only 18% of Americans are feeling engaged at work. And this means that people are just not feeling happy, excited, or stimulated by doing their job. It's just kind of like a means to an end, just a way to pay the bills. People aren't feeling any sort of reward or incentive system. And this is partly to blame on behalf of the employers as well, because one thing that I always hated when I was working a regular job is when you do a good job, it should be recognized, right? Like when you do something that goes above and beyond for a customer or other people that work there for the day, that's something that the boss should acknowledge. You know, that gives people an incentive to do better again next time. But usually it just goes unnoticed, and the people in charge are completely ungrateful for going above and beyond. And there's also usually never any bonuses or any sort of financial motive. Obviously, there is a different type of motive when it comes to people just feeling good about what they do. But when there's zero recognition, both financially or just from the acknowledgement side of things, it gives people little hope. It doesn't give people any reason to do a good job. And I think this commenter actually nailed this feeling here, and I want to read this to you guys. This person goes, "I love your channel, but I want to correct a few things. Pretty much the way you look at it, the job market in the US is actually pretty decent. The problem is not how many people are employed. The problem is that those who are employed are increasingly feeling hopeless and burned out as the cost of real estate and things like insurance are at record highs, and people are still dealing with the effects of inflation, but inflation is coming down. The issue isn't a lot of unemployed people. The issue is people who are working hard and don't really see the light at the end of the tunnel." Now, I think pretty much everybody out there can agree with this sentiment on some level, unless you're a really high income earner and you do get a lot of fulfillment from your job. But if you don't fit into one of those categories, you probably feel like this person said. You know, you are working and you are doing everything you can to try to get ahead, even if you're doing all the right things financially, staying out of debt and things like that. Sometimes it's just not enough. It's easy to feel hopeless when you can't afford a house, even though you make a six-figure salary, or the house you are living in is starting to cost so much to live in, you're wondering if you're going to be able to continue affording it unless you start making a lot more money. Those kind of things don't really make people feel motivated. You know, you have one perspective of like the older baby boomers, just like the original comment I started this video off with, that basically thinks all the young people are lazy, who would rather just stay home and play video games and jerk off all day rather than take jobs that need to be filled. That's the biggest problem with society. And I'm not going to lie, there is a group of people out there that fit into this category that are definitely a big part of the problem. And a lot of it has to do with the parents and how they were brought up. But from the younger person's perspective, they think that it's not even worth working any of these jobs because the pay is so low that I'm never going to get anywhere anyways, so I might as well stay home and play video games and jerk off. But the problem is the end result is the same, which is that nobody wants to work. Wow, check this out, guys. Last time I walked down this street, there was a house here. Now it's gone. Totally leveled. This place was dilapidated anyways, so good riddance. But I guarantee there's gonna be a big, expensive new mansion going up here. This is just the way it is now. Wow, it's refreshing here to see a house that's not actually a flip. They bought this place in 2016 for $912,000, but they were way off on the price. Take a look at this. Listed in March for $2.5 million, then reduced to 2.3, then down to 2.1, and now down to 1.9 as of July, and still no takers. So it's gonna have to come down a lot more than that, it seems, in order to get this house sold. But man, we're already talking about $600,000 in price declines and counting. Now, a lot of people are avoiding certain types of jobs, especially when it comes to underpaid jobs, because nobody wants to go to college and graduate and have student loan debt to get a job that makes 50 grand a year. That just doesn't really cut it anymore. You know, that's the crazy thing too. Like 6-7 years ago, making 50 grand a year was a very decent salary. Before we saw the pandemic and the couple years leading up before then, you could easily make 50 grand a year and have a very nice life. You still can, but you're gonna be living on a lot less. You're gonna have less extra spending cash because a lot of that money now is going towards just keeping a roof over your head and keeping food in your stomach. A lot of people are also sick of the toxic work environments, you know, places that have unreasonable overtime or have poor management practices. People are walking away from those type of positions as well. In fact, it was recently found out that full-time workers average about 9.2 hours of unpaid overtime per week. How is that even possible, guys? I don't know, because I don't work a regular job, but if you experience something like this, let me know if you see this happening to you. And then of course there's the issue with the government jobs data, where they constantly tell us how great things are and that there's so many jobs available, when in fact half of the positions out there are ghost jobs. They're not real jobs, they're just positions that the companies put up in order to make it look like that they're hiring so they can build up a candidate database. They data farm people, they collect a bunch of people's info, they get data on you which they can turn around and use for their own best interests, or even turn around and sell if they want to, which is a problem. Meanwhile, you're applying for hundreds of jobs and not able to get one, which is also demotivating. You know, I've heard from plenty of you guys that have applied for hundreds, if not even thousands of jobs, that have said that you're out there applying, you've been out of work for months and months at a time, applying for all these jobs and getting nowhere. That doesn't really instill confidence or motivation for people to want to work either. This seems like a pretty new phenomenon as well. You know, when I first started working, it seemed like every place that was hiring, they were really actually looking for people to work. It wasn't just like some fake ghost job listing that we're just pretending and messing with everybody like they are today. This guy who watches my video says it is absolutely brutal out there. I'm in my 50s and hanging on, and everything Michael said is 100% true, referencing a video I did about how many layoffs we've had. And people are losing work. I don't see how they are still able to get by. I'm hanging on, but I don't know for how much longer. That's not a very good position to be in either, you know? Like, I'm glad that I nailed it in the video, and I'm glad that I have a good understanding of what's going on, but at the same time, this is depressing stuff. But I'm not afraid to talk about depressing stuff, because these are real life scenarios that people who watch this channel are actually living through, and I think it's worth talking about. This person says that his company just laid off 278 people this week, right before Christmas, even though we're growing at a record pace and our stock has doubled in 4 months. We continue to hear how great we are doing, and then they go ahead and lay off people about every 3 or 4 months and add more work to the remaining employees. This is also a terrible situation to be in, because either number one, you got the chopping block, or number two, you don't get fired, but you're one of the ones left behind that now has to make up the difference for all these people that they just let go. Also, not a very motivating feeling. And listen, I get it, guys. Like I told you in a previous video, I've had plenty of different jobs in the past, and none of them ever really were fun or motivating, except for delivering pizzas was a fun job to do, and it was nice going home with cash every day. I think that was like the real incentive, right? Like when you have a job and every day you go home with money in your pocket, that is very motivating. You know, when you only get paid like once every 2 weeks or something, and you have to go in and day out and do the grind, that is probably a much worse feeling, I would imagine. And then of course you have the dreaded salary expectations. I covered this in a recent video, but for anybody who didn't see that, I'll give you a refresher, because right now you have Gen Z, completely out of touch with reality on what people need to earn in order to be financially successful. You know, Gen Z thinks that you need to earn almost $600,000 a year to feel like you made it in life and be financially successful, guys. Like, clearly, these guys are watching way too many TikTok millionaires reveal all of their earnings, and they believe that this is just how it's going to be for them and for everybody in their generation, which is just completely wrong. It could be. I'm not saying it's impossible to get there, but you need to work your ass off to get there. It's not going to happen that easily. Most people are going to have to settle for far less than that. And then you go down to baby boomers, on the other hand, they say that making $100,000 a year is all you need in order to leave a good, stable financial life, which I would say is pretty close to accurate today, depending on where you live. Obviously, if you live in a high cost of living area, $100,000 a year isn't going to go very far. But if you're not in a high cost of living area, that should be plenty. And then, of course, in the middle generations, you know, like Gen X and millennials, they still think you need to make, you know, $200,000-$300,000 a year to be financially successful. And a lot of them are probably looking at their current lifestyle and their current setup and thinking, if I don't make that, then I'm not really ever going to be able to live the life that I want to live. And so if people are looking for work and they don't see the path to being able to make this kind of money, once again, that is not motivating for people to move forward on. And up until now, you can say, well, so what, Michael? These people are still being babies and just whining because, you know, nobody ever gets what they want in life. Life isn't fair. So why do these people think that they're just going to, you know, walk into a job making $200,000-$300,000 a year? And that's fair. I totally agree. You know, like, nobody can expect that, especially from the very beginning. Check this out, guys. You heard the church earlier? Somebody's getting married here because you got the church door open. You got this old Rolls out here waiting for the bride and the groom to come out. I think I saw the bride sitting in the car earlier. Pretty cool. Classic. You also have some interesting things that are all coming together right now that are making it seem like people don't want to work even more than what could be the reality. You know, you have a lot of older workers that are retiring right now just because of demographics, but also a lot of people chose to retire early during the pandemic. They were able to get that boost in their retirement accounts and actually walk away from their job permanently due to the favorable conditions in the stock market. And then at the same time, you have younger people that are staying in school longer and basically delaying going into the workforce and opting for more college degrees as a way to supposedly enhance their job prospects, which to me is probably not the smartest thing to do. Because number one, you're racking up more debt doing that, and you're spending less of your adult years working and actually earning money, which you can be using to save and put towards your future, especially when we're talking about retirement. You know, you might think it's smart to wait until you're 30 years old to start working and you're going to get this degree and walk into this amazing job, but that's not how the world works anymore. Even if you do get that fantastic degree that most people don't have and you spent 8 years in school, you're not going to walk into an entry-level position earning, you know, $200,000-$300,000 a year. It just doesn't work like that. You're still going to have to work your way up to that. And all those years that you wasted in school, you could have been earning at least a fraction of it. You could have maybe been earning $70,000, $80,000, or maybe even $100,000 a year if you were able to find the right job and change jobs every couple of years. And a lot of that money could have gone towards saving and investing. But instead, you spent it in school, and now you owe even more in student loan debt. And then you have other places throughout the country that actually have a low labor force participation rate due to how bad local economies can get. And West Virginia is the perfect example of this right now, because it's an area where people that are still there don't have a lot of opportunity, but they also don't have the money to leave because they're living in poverty. And then when people do leave the area, for example, then it causes local businesses and the local economy to do even worse because there's less people and less customers there able to spend money, and the people who remain don't have a lot of money to support the local economy. So it's this downward death spiral that these local economies can go through when a lot of people start leaving and there's not a whole lot of opportunity. And in places like that, you can look around and say, hey, look at all these people sitting on welfare. No one wants to work. Well, in a case like that, there might not even be any work available for a lot of people who live there, and welfare is the only way. Although, just to be clear, I am against welfare programs. I don't think we should have them. I think there should be other ways that people can get help when they need it, and the government shouldn't have to pay for it, which ends up being really our tax dollars that pay for it. And you know, the worst part is, guys, when people actually do well, and they actually do make enough money and they reach those goals that a lot of people have, sometimes they still end up squandering it and wasting it, which is just a tragedy, you know? I found this story about this couple in their 40s, right? And combined, they earn $286,000 a year, which is about 3.5 times the median household income of about $80,000 a year. So by pretty much everybody's standard, except for Gen Z, these people have made it, right? They are doing extremely well financially, and they shouldn't have any problems, except that's not how the real world works either. Turns out, this couple spends $5,000 a month just on shopping and dining out, and they have $65,000 in credit card debt, and they owe $97,000 on a home equity line of credit. Wow, these guys are the model citizens. You want to be like them, right? It's crazy how people can earn that kind of money and still go into this kind of debt. Like, imagine the amount of cash they have to be spending monthly just to be able to have this amount of debt still. To make matters worse, they only have $2,000 in savings. So if either one of them was to lose their job, then they would be able to get by for like 5 days and they would be completely broke. I mean, can you imagine making almost $300K a year and you could be completely broke if somebody loses a job? That is pitiful. And even this, they only have $168,000 in investments, you know, like their retirement savings, their assets and everything, which is not that much for a couple making this kind of coin in their 40s. $168,000, you know, a single person can achieve that before they even reach 30 if they're diligent at saving and investing. And these guys are not alone either, because as of January of 2024, 36% of people who are earning $200,000 or more per year are actually living paycheck to paycheck, guys. So it is actually much worse than you think when you look at the stats. The theory on this of why that is because people that earn a lot of money live in this fantasy bubble, thinking that they have less incentive to save for a rainy day more than the average person because they're more confident about their job prospects, they're less likely to switch jobs, and they believe that they're just going to continue earning this money forever. And obviously a lot of people have had to learn that the hard way, but it seems like no matter how many people learn that the hard way, you still have 36% of people in this category just turning the blind eye and just spending everything they make and then some. We still have 37% of Americans also that can't afford an unexpected expense over $400, and about 21% of people have no emergency savings at all. Zero, zilch. And this couple, they even recognize the fact that if one thing goes wrong, if they have one major financial hiccup in their life, that they're done. They are not going to be able to afford it, and they're probably going to end up losing pretty much everything. Because even though they make a $286,000 combined income, the majority of it comes from the husband's job. So if for whatever reason he loses his job, then like 80% of the income is going to be gone. But I do think, despite everything we just talked about, that people do need to start taking responsibility for their own actions, you know? At the same time, there is more opportunity than ever before in 2024 and going into 2025, guys. Like, I talk a lot on here about how bad the economy is, and that's actually true when you look at how poorly we're doing as a nation compared to how good we could be doing if they would just tweak a few things and did things better. But when you just push all that aside and look at, as an American, what do I have the ability to do here? The possibilities are basically endless, guys. You can go to school, you can get that degree and get that job you've always wanted. If that's not the path for you, you can start a business. You know, you can start a side hustle while you are working a job that you hate and slowly grow that into a full-time income and turn that into your dream job or your dream business. That's another possibility. But you know what? Most people are too lazy to do that. They just say, I don't know how to do that. They have excuses. You know, I didn't know is the biggest excuse that people use. And in 2024, that's no longer an excuse for anything. Anything you ever want to know about is on the internet, okay? You can learn anything you want to learn, usually for free. And if it's not free, you can probably learn it for just a couple $100s by taking some kind of online course. So there's really no excuses in this day and age to say, oh, I didn't know, oh, I don't know how to do that, because if you don't know how to do something, you can easily learn within a few months and begin to do it. I'm not gonna say, look how great I am or anything, but that's what I did with this YouTube channel, guys. Like, way before I even started the channel, I watched basically every video I could find and get my hands on that explained how to start a YouTube channel, you know, some methodology behind it, what you want to do to kind of set yourself up for success and all of that stuff. I studied it way before I actually did it, so that way I kind of had an idea of what to do and I didn't just walk into this whole thing blind. And when I started, it did not go well. It took me 9 months to get my first 1,000 subscribers on this channel. And I've seen many other channels do it way faster than that, so I wasn't really doing it right. I made a ton of mistakes in the beginning, but I didn't quit. It was a goal of mine that I had, and I wanted to quit working as a real estate agent, and I wanted to quit that so badly that I was willing to do whatever it took to make sure that I did well here on YouTube. And then a couple years later, I was able to turn it into my full-time gig. The only reason I was able to do that was because of relentless persistence, okay? And this brings me to this last person's point, which is a kind of harsh, but I want to share it because he has a good point. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But he says here, when I was in school, classes included woodworking, car and boat repair, plumbing, electrical repair. Also, we learned business economics and home financing. Your generation doesn't know these things. You don't know how to survive using your training and talent. All your age group does is whine and complain. So stop complaining and learn how to do stuff for yourself and stop depending on the haves to bail you out. We did, and that's why you are here. This person's giving some tough love here in this comment, basically saying that there's no excuses of why you can't make it in today's world, which was the point I was just making. And the other thing is, everybody knows how to do something. Chances are you have some sort of talent or are good at something, or at least semi-knowledgeable about something, right? And that's what you can do. You can turn that into your future business or your side hustle, or use that as a leaping off point into a new career. Like, for my own personal example, how it went is that I sold real estate full-time for 13 years, and even though towards the end of that, I no longer enjoyed working as a real estate agent, I didn't enjoy selling houses and working with clients anymore, I still did have a passion for learning about real estate and talking about real estate, so I still continue to do that here on YouTube. That's a way I turned my former talent and knowledge into another stream of income. And I think everybody has the potential to do something like that. Like my mom, for example, she loves doing arts and crafts. And now that she's retired, she's been making a lot of different arts and crafts and is looking at starting a little side hustle selling those, which is pretty cool. You know, she's going to be able to do something that she was never able to do, didn't have enough time to do when she was working full time, and now turn that into a little side income. So everybody's version of this looks differently. You know, everybody's passion and knowledge about things is different, and you just need to look at that and say, what can I do with this to turn it into some form of income? Because I guarantee you, you have something. And if you use that as the motivation to say, you know, I am going to turn this into something and I am going to use this to get ahead in life. Now you just completely reinvigorated your no longer wanting to work mentality. Because think about it. People don't want to work because they feel like they're working for nothing. They feel like it's a means to an end, like we talked about in this video. But if you feel like you're working towards a goal and achieving that goal actually all of a sudden looks to be realistic, you are going to start working harder than you've ever worked to achieve that goal. That's what will happen. So I hope this video serves as some motivation for people who needed to hear that, but also a reality check for people who are being too lazy. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.